What up, what up, y'all? We're back with another episode of the Asset Class, and we couldn't be coming in at a more timely piece of American history unfold in front of us. That's my boy Jesse.
And my man Earl.
Look, we're about to give you guys a lot of really great, actionable information. Jesse is an amazing business coach. He helps scale businesses past plateaus, past bottlenecks, past poor SOPs and communication.
And my man Earl got all things covered relative to building wealth from all of the different wealth strategies that are out there, from those to taxes and everything in between.
So I want to give you guys a disclaimer real quick because this is going to be amazing information, but we want you to use it as educational purposes. This is going to be your jump off point to do your research. We always highly encourage you to do your own research and to reach out to licensed professionals that are insured, bonded if the case may be, and they have a long track record of success. As you do your own research, each one, reach one, teach one, because that's how we learn and grow as a community.
Absolutely. And as we're growing the community, we're also growing our brand and our work processes. And last week was a shining example of that growth, where when we initially started this endeavor, man, talk about time flying. So that was back in August when we started filming these on a weekly basis, and we have been consistent every week since. And we filmed last week as well, with a huge lesson to be learned in that. So we've recently made the evolution from recording on Zoom to recording on Riverside, because podcasting is an audio experience and Zoom does not deliver the highest quality relative to audio. So moving to Riverside, which is actually designed specifically for what it is that we're doing, you know, that obviously was a good logical move. Well, a part of learning is doing. So in the process of us doing, we learned that there is an echo cancellation feature within Riverside that when it is not selected, your audio is going to be a terrible experience. So like, we finished our episode last week and it was just Don DeMarco. We just dropping bombs all over the place. Absolute, complete. You know, we went crazy. And I go back to do the edits to prepare it for release, or I'm looking at it to do some of the edits in preparation for release. And I'm just hearing us literally talking on top of each other. Like Earl was talking on top of Earl and Jesse was talking on top of Jesse. It's like, bruh. But what that is illustrative of is, and this is just how I live my life, truly. When it comes to failing, the concept of failure comes from not trying, not doing. Right? 'Cause I actually, let me fix that, because I don't even believe in trying, because either we doing or we ain't. So
right,
like failure is being afraid to do something, where, you know, I may have a burning fire inside of me to explore something, but I allow the outside forces of the world to prevent me from exploring those things. That's failure, right? Because in the process of doing, I'm either going to hit my target or I'm going to fall short. Now, if I hit my target, great. And if I fall short, great as well, because that's an opportunity to learn. So in the process of doing, I'm either going to win or I'm going to learn. There are no losses.
It's crazy because, you know, I always talk about the meta effect that we have going on, where we help people grow their businesses because that is our business, while we have this business going on, and then we have an overarching parent company business to this business as well. So we're talking about inception on inception. And one thing that I have to remind everyone here is that if you want to be different than other people, you have to start looking at obstacles in a different manner. You have to start looking at difficult differently. Never, ever, ever has there been a world champion mountain climber or rock climber that cursed the mountain. They look at the mountain as their best friend because they can't learn different grips. They can't learn how to build muscle in their legs and balance and endurance without that obstacle. The same way a plane can't take off without turbulence and downforce. So you're only going to rise as high as the opposition against you. So this is one of those things that was placed in front of us that helped us rise up. And it's funny, we both came with multiple answers to fix the situation. And it just shows you the type of partnership I have. And I'm super blessed to be able to build with Jesse, someone who's so serious and real. Because if you've been doing business for any point in time, you know it's rare to find someone who says, hey, let's do this. And they execute on it. Not just once, not just twice, not just when it's convenient, but every single time, because integrity is a part of their identity. And we're going to talk about identity more in the episode.
Oh, man, that is a 100% fact. You know, wearing the title of entrepreneur is it can be very lonely. It can have its bouts of the highs and, you know, the depressive lows. And as entrepreneurs, we just got to work through that. So to have the opportunity to partner with my man's here, where, you know, I'm just going to regurgitate his same point there, which is always on, always moving forward, always dead serious about the stakes and the opportunities that we have within those stakes and leveraging them to the max. We've said it quite a few times here on this program of, you know, it's a lot of folks that talk about business and, you know, we're actually doing it. So as we're having these conversations, it's a real thing where, like, you know, as we're building this, we both have our commitment to it. However, we have our commitments outside of it as well. So what we're doing is striking and finding the balance. But the reality is, I told Earl and partner we are currently working through the motions with, if y'all had a whole bunch of time on y'all hand, I wouldn't have time for you. I only got time for folks that actually got motion, you know what I mean? Like, that's actually making things happen, because there are a lot of folks in the world that are just talking to be talking, but they're not really moving the needle.
They sure are. And to give them an example, we needed to have a production meeting about the pod. And we needed about an hour to talk about some things. And he hit me up on, I think, a Saturday. He's like, hey, brother, when can we get this done? And I was like, I could do this Friday. He's like, you don't have any openings until Friday? I was like, not unless you're open to meeting after 10 p.m. I'm completely booked out. And he said, all right, Friday it is. And we made Friday shake. And
right.
This is a mind piece thing that I want you guys to get there. When you move in different circles, conversations are different, but the emotions are different as well. Think about somebody who is very small-minded and not abundant-minded. They're going to say, dang, you can't make the time for me? I thought you was my partner. I thought we're doing this. Whereas Jesse is abundant. I know he just, you know, he got that Cheshire grin. I know he was doing that on the other side of the phone, like, man, this brother out here getting it, but I'm getting it too. So I'm going to see him Friday. And that's exactly how it has to be. The more powerful, the more value you have with people, unless you're working on a specific project where you're both together, you're not going to see the best people in your life that often. All the incredible men that I know, I see them less. Like, I have a great partner in my business named Jason. Jason's amazing. Jason and I have hung out 2 times in the last 3 months because we're both getting it, because we're dividing and conquering, because he's in one room taking care of the things I'm in the next room on another side of town or two other towns or a whole different state completely. And then we'll report back, hey, this is what went on, da 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 da, best practices, boom. That's how it's got to be when you're really working with winners.
To that point, with all that we covered last week, we're going to reiterate some of those same things and obviously expand upon it, because a lot of the things that we talked about last week, there's been more that's piled on it from last week, which it just kind of speaks to how crazy that the world is right now with all of the things that are going on. So as we kind of think about all that's happening in Iran, for me, just watching everything kind of repeat itself is absolutely insane, because we've been down this road already, and we're doing it again to a worse extent, where I liken it to the analogy of if you in the club and you see a little dude get hit by the biggest dude in the club, and their response to that is to swing on everybody around them, and then you just watch everybody like jump on them. That's how that would look in the club. Well, to watch Iran respond the way that it is, where the big dog in the club, us, came and swung on them, and they went and swung at everybody. But in this situation, everybody is kind of just looking at him like, bruh, this motherfucker just hit me in my mouth.
Right.
Like, they not
I
jumping them back.
Nothing.
Right.
I didn't even say nothing.
Why you ain't doing nothing when the fat bitch jumped on me? Since Iran's been attacked, they just been going at everybody in the East and in the Middle East. And the thing about it, to kind of watch it all play out, I'm thinking about it in the context of like what this looks like over the long haul. Because I know, like, when we went to InvestFest last year, well, actually, rewind it, before InvestFest, I already had plans of purchasing real estate in Dubai because of all of the opportunities that are out there. And plus, America ain't really had its shit together for a little while now. So, like, I've been looking at the whole world as my oyster, and thinking about the real estate options that have been available in Dubai, and now all of that is being upended, because any of the influencers that you heard that were over in Dubai, they pretty much echoed some of the same messages, which were, it's just like super safe. You know what I mean? Like, I can walk down the street with all my jewelry on and all my money in my pocket and whatever, and there's no fear for what would happen here in America. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's wild, wild west over here in certain spaces and places. You can't be out there with too much going on, or somebody will relieve you of it. And over there, like, it's just been this beacon of safetyness, and that is being turned on its head, where the 7-star hotel in Dubai got hit. UAE is taking incoming, like, it's Qatar is taking, like, when I was in the Air Force, deploying to Kuwait or Qatar or like those types of places, that was like chill. Like, I've been to Kuwait a couple times, and it's just like, it's just chill. You know what I mean? Like, ain't nothing going on. It's safe. It's hot as shit. It's disrespectfully hot as shit, but it ain't, it won't really nothing going on. It was like super safe. Like, that was one of the transit spots to stop at on the way to Iraq or Afghanistan. So, like, that was like, again, chill. They taking incoming in Kuwait now. Qatar, the same way. When I went to Qatar, we went downtown to the mall, and it was so crazy. It was so crazy to kind of see the nationals from Qatar. Like, they don't work. All of the work is done by third country nationals. So, they import all of the labor, and, they doing all of the things. Well, we went downtown to the mall, and the mall had a big ass ice slide in it, like a huge ice slide. Like, it was fun as shit on, you know what I'm saying? Like, we had fun in Qatar, went shopping and all kinds of, bruh, they taking incoming now. This is different. And Iraq is picking back up in its craziness as well. Go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, it's just for some of our listeners that aren't as worldly, it can be eye-opening to hear that. And I know with my dad, living there for many years, my dad lived in Kuwait for probably 10 years. And just the way that he was able to move freely and whatnot. And, Kuwait is like the number 3 party city in the world. Maybe not right now at this exact moment because they're in taken attack. However, people come from all over the world just to party there, just to shop there. And we have this Americanized view of different places, because we've had that propaganda placed on us. This is why we have the asset class, because we want to control our narrative, but we also want to have an open discourse about different places around the world. So you head to East Africa, and you see signs that say there are poor children in America, finish your food. It completely blows your whole mind to realize that many of the things that you were told are not true. When people learned that Osama bin Laden was a CIA operative and he was trained by us, that blows their whole mind. And we could go on and on and on about all these things. We could even talk about Fidel Castro, because shout out to the people in Cuba for what you're going through right now. A blockade and power grids going down and being forced into this position of oppression through a military that you don't have any direct involvement with. So I feel for all the people out there. But, we go back far enough and we look at Fidel's relationship with the United States.
Bruh, even taking it to Iran specifically, the United States military trained the Iranian military. And the Iranian military being trained by the U.S. military is the reason that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or the IRGC, which reports directly to the Ayatollah, was formed. Because when all of the revolution was going on, when all of that was happening and the new leaders were being put into place, they weren't sure that the Iranian military was 100% on the side of Iran because of how they had been trained by the U.S. military. So, like, it's a rich history and all of this stuff, and I've been getting kind of a crash course in all of it now that the war is going on, because this is going to impact, it's already impacting the world, and it's going to continue to impact it in a major kind of way. But that audio that you sent of the feedback, that is so important. So Earl shared with me.
Shout out to Ariel.
For sure.
I know she's going to watch this.
For sure. Salute to you. What was so dope about that feedback is, to her point, there's so much that's going on in the world. It can feel overwhelming and it can feel defeating. And as we're having these conversations about the history of what has led us to where we are right now, it gives insight into what the opportunities can look like on the other side, right? Because we've been through darker moments. And now, from what we understand of what got us here, we can kind of start paying attention to the leverage points that we can start pulling to truly build generational wealth. Because, again, you best believe there are a bunch of folks that are, well, it's a small percentage of humanity, but you best believe it's a lot of folks that are sitting there with the Birdman hand rubs like, we about to get it. War is good business for different folks. So although the spoils of war don't kind of make it down to the lowest levels, we do have the opportunity to take advantage of a lot of the things that are happening if we are positioned. For example, understanding that the Strait of Hormuz being shut down impacts 20% of world energy. That's important to know, because that's going to have a direct impact on the markets. And when I say the markets, the investment markets, the longer that this war keep going, it's going to have a direct effect on the market. For those of us that know that we came in on certain positions, we can look at liquidating in advance of the correction, because there's going to be a correction at some point. And a lot of the things that are happening right now are fuel to that correction. So if we're not paying attention to the things that are happening overseas, and then all of a sudden, you know, that 30% correction hits the market, and you look at your brokerage accounts and you want to go jump out of a window. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what happened back in the day when everything crashed. Like, people were literally jumping out of windows. So the same way that happened then, when we know what's going on right now, we can put ourselves in position to win on the other side. It's a lot of folks that's going to get left behind with all of the things that are going on, between the war, between AI, between all of the things that are going on. I'm intent on ensuring that on the other side of it, future generations of my family are and lineage, people that I care about, are straight, based on the planning, the meticulous planning that's happening right now, and observing all of the things that are actually going on.
Would love to speak to that, bro.
Please do.
But
Please
before you move on, this is why balance in your portfolio and your wealth approach is so important. So if you've been watching this show for a while, you know we've talked at length about how we have tax now, tax later, and tax advantaged accounts. That is one way to balance your account. You have to take into account taxes. If you don't take into account taxes, you're going to be very, very sad. Now, the other things we have to look at are long-term and short-term. If you have picked out great blue chip companies, like if you got a great position in NVIDIA, for example, and you plan to hold this for 15 years or more, it doesn't really matter what it does over the next 5 years. If it dips, if they do a split, now there can be opportunities there where you look at another part of your account and it's your safe money portion, or maybe it's cash value that you have in your cash value life insurance policy, where you look at an opportunity at a great company to be able to buy into, and maybe you move some money from the guaranteed account to that account when it drops 20 or 30%, because it's a high likelihood that not only is it going to come back, but it might hyper accelerate, you know, when this situation is over. One of the things we always have to account for is the forced inflation that's happening, because as the cost of fuel and energy goes up, then the cost of food and transportation, and there's so many different elements that make up our world, all these little externalities that make up businesses that all inflate. So your portfolio in certain places will inflate, and other places it will not. That's why you have to be in the steering wheel. You have to be holding on to the steering wheel, and you have to be looking at the road ahead.
So when all of this kicked off, the president initially said we were going in to replace the dangerous regime. What we ended up doing was replacing Ayatollah Khomeini with Ayatollah Khomeini, in probably the worst of ways, where the Ayatollah Khomeini that we assassinated was 86 years old and on the way out naturally. Well, now he's a martyr for their cause, which that holds weight over there. And we've seen the impacts of that as well. So, for example, the shooting in Austin, Texas, the shooter had on a shirt that said property of Allah, and he had a picture of the assassinated Ayatollah in his home. So now that Ayatollah has become a martyr, that's a component that we're gonna have to deal with for a while. Like, we're gonna feel the effects of that assassination, because they ain't just rolling over for that, and their factions are spread around the world. So how they get back is different than how we get ours. Like, America gets its get back loud in your face right now with this current administration, and they gonna get theirs over the long haul, which is scary and dangerous. Like, to even think about is like super scary. So that money got taken out, and was replaced with, you guessed it, his son. So the United States killed the new Ayatollah's mom, dad, wife, daughter, son-in-law, granddaughter.
I believe he lost a sister too.
Yes.
So
yes.
it's like they took out the majority of his family, and they're like, now he's going to peacefully run this nation, and he's going to love America and implement democracy. It's you see how I said that and it sounds crazy? It's because it is. And, I'm not laughing at the reality that the Iranian people are going through right now. It's the absurdity to think that you can just skip foreign diplomacy and just do anything that you want, and there are no ramifications. And after leading with this idea that America could be super hyper dependent, that we will ruin anybody's economy, the things that we've said to Spain, to France, to Germany, to the UK, our closest allies, over the last 60, 70 years. And now being in a position like, can you send warships to help us out in the Strait of Hormuz? Because we can't contain the area and we need your help. And I know you kicked us off your base and we couldn't use it for our intelligence. That's a reference to Spain. But if you could help us, it would be great. And it's also like the absurdity of that, where many, many people, many times, I've been saying this since his first presidency, that our president moves like Suge Knight, where he just takes things, he does things, doesn't explain himself, he doesn't give apologies. And that is only going to be effective in certain situations. And then you get in other situations, you actually need diplomacy, you need finesse, you need strategy, you need a collective of high-thinking minds, of experts on what's going on in the culture of the place that you're looking at doing whatever you're doing, whether that's a deal, a treaty, a tariff, a sanction. And, now we're in this position where, our president has lifted some of the sanctions off of Russia because we need Russia's help, but our intelligence agencies are saying that they are helping Iran. So it's a crazy position to be in right now.
Right. And, you mentioned skipping diplomacy. It's even worse than that because, we had our diplomatic channels opened back in June where there were conversations happening between the United States and Iran relative to their nuclear ambitions. Well, that was the pretense that was communicated to us at that time, that, they can't have a nuclear weapon, right? And during those negotiations, what did we do? We sent our B-52 bombers overnight to Iran to drop crazy munitions and blow up their manufacturing capacities while the negotiations were happening, and basically bombed Iran for 12 days. And again,
during Ramadan, it could not be more disrespectful.
So
during Ramadan and Lent.
The first time that negotiations were happening back in June, that's what they did. That's what we did as a country. And fast forwarding to January of this year, there is a fresh set of diplomatic talks happening between the United States and Iran. So the prime minister, I think it was the prime minister of Oman, that went on TV and said, yo, these negotiations are going incredible. The Iranians are giving up everything. We thought that we had a nuclear deal with President Obama's administration. This one is they are giving it up. And a day or two later, what did we do? Attacked Iran again. It's like the diplomacy has pretty much been used as a false pretense to attack them. So now they on some, we not going to settle this the way y'all want to settle it, because when we attacked them back in June, so we attacked Iran and then offered a ceasefire. And the Iranians accepted that ceasefire. To then come back in January of this year to repeat the same thing. And not only have we been consistently dropping bombs on military targets, but we indiscriminate. If it's a school of elementary school girls, yeah, Tomahawk missile. Like, we dropped a Tomahawk missile on an elementary school that was in session. Like, the school was full of kids. And we dropped a Tomahawk missile on an elementary school.
Despicable is the first word that I think of when we're talking about this. And also a war crime, coming after civilians, that's a no-go. Many of the different accords that were let out by Geneva and different accords over years of what military action is supposed to look like. The agreements of war to not go after waterways, to not go after utility grids. And then what do we do as a nation? Earl and Jesse didn't do it. You didn't do it, most likely, if you're listening to this. But as a nation, that's what we did. And we let black rain come down on people.
Black rain. Adding some context to that, what he's saying there is it was raining oil because between us and Israel, bombed their oil infrastructure as well, which had literally oil, black rain pouring down on folks.
On fire, acidic, burning your flesh off. It is unimaginable. It turns what's already terrible with using these munitions on citizens into a biological attack on top of it.
And beyond that, in the Middle East, it's a lot more difficult to produce potable water. It's a full process that had to be engineered to provide potable water. Those desalinization systems that removes the salt to make the water potable, that got attacked in Iran. And the Iranians are just like, that too is a war crime. Like, how are you going after our water supply, which is a very, 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 very slippery slope, because the FBI testified to Congress that our adversaries have already hacked into our utility grids, into our banking systems. So, like, when I think back to when the Amazon Web Services issue happened a few months ago, and the amount of turmoil that kicked up for that, it was a few hours that Amazon Web Service was down, and it caused all kinds of turmoil. I know, like, it directly impacted my business for sure. And then Verizon went down not too long ago, and that caused a issue. The reason I'm saying this is when we are sanctioning the action of attacking their utility grid, that makes that free game, people. So when they start hacking into our utility grids, because we are a spoiled society, our poorest people are living fairly well in comparison to some of the best parts of the worst areas of the world.
So what I mean by that, have cell phones,
right?
Like, you know what I mean? Our poor people have social media accounts. They have hobbies, passions.
Right.
Go ahead, brother.
Maybe not the best food, but food is different. So for us as a society of people, our tolerance for pain and inconvenience is a lot lower than a lot of places in the world. So, I mean, we got to put this in context. They in Iran are literally having bombs dropped on them every day. Probably right now as we speak, it's probably bombs being dropped on areas of Iran. And they are conditioned to endure just because it's been that, from Iraq being at war with Iran to, like, the Middle East has been a tinderbox for a long time. So they've been conditioned to endure the inconveniences and the they start cutting off our utility grids, it's going to cause anarchy in this country. We are not a people that can go long without our cell phones and hot water.
Look at what happened to Texas when their power grid went down several times last year and the year before. The amount of crime that happened in nice areas, the amount of people that immediately picked up and fled to Mexico, which had to be the most ultimate irony. Ted Cruz does it every time. He probably has one heck of a discount card. Every time something bad happens, man, that man's in Cancun. And I couldn't agree more to your point. And then also, just to paint it differently, just because I had a classmate when I was in college who's from Iran. And one of the things she told me that really shifted the way I talked, she's like, we had this speaker and they were talking about the toughness of people in Iran. And she's like, we're not super conditioned to pain and to tragedy. It's just we've been forced to have to survive. People think they have PTSD here in America because they're a bad test taker. Imagine losing half of your family when you are 10 years old. And then 5 years later, you lose another half of your family. Imagine constantly trying to dream and become the best version of yourself, and you have absolutely no idea how to leave where you are or even how to make it to the next day. And that really humbled me to levels that I'd never been humbled before. So everything that we're saying here is into respect of the incredible strength and perseverance that you'd have to be in Iran, to be in Iraq, to be in Afghanistan, to be in Oman, to be Turkey, Bahrain. Like, I could just keep going and going and going. The Palestinians, there's even, if you get into the nuance of what happens to certain Israeli people and what happens to other Israeli people, there's just so much going on, and we are so spoiled.
We really are. And we've been rocked to sleep that way. I didn't fully understand that until I got stationed over in Germany, and I lived over there for 6 years. This is trivial in comparison to the deeper topics that we've been covering so far. But when I got to Germany and we get to the clubs, which I have no idea what to expect in a German club. Like, I didn't think it would be popping though. Like, that didn't register in my mind that it would be popping. It was. But beyond it being popping, I get in there and I see these beautiful black women. I mean, but they like a different kind of beautiful than what I've seen before. And I'm like, yo, what are you? Like you are you are something different. Ethiopian and Eritrean women, that was my first introduction to Ethiopian and Eritrean women for real. And that was a eye-opening experience of how ignorant that they keep us to what's going on in the world, because my ignorance was when it came to Africa, the only thing I knew was those late night BET commercials where, you would see the kids with the pot bellies and the flies around their mouth and stuff like that. And it's that was the representation of Africa. And then all of a sudden I get over to Germany and I'm looking at these women. I'm like, yo.
You are a different level of goddess. It's crazy. I remember the first time that I met, a black Egyptian, and her friends were from Sudan. And it was just, I was the same way. I wasn't like, what are you? What's your nationality? I was just like, hi. Voice cracking. All my cool superpowers went out the window immediately. I turned into a character off of SpongeBob. Yinga dinga, hi. This guy's really weird. He kind of has a nice smile. I like his freckles. And you're talking to them, and they're brilliant, and they have a PhD, and they're doing this, and they're doing that. It's just the best thing that can ever happen is to travel around the world. I used to always say I had a poster which stated travel is a vaccination against ignorance. But now vaccinations are not hot in the streets, depending on who you ask. So we'll have to word it a different way. But, it's so powerful. And, before we move on, did you have other points
No, go
here?
ahead.
Because I know we got so much to talk about.
Right. Go ahead.
So with that changing of yourself, it leads perfectly into identity. A lot of people are not where they want to be because of a crisis of identity. So you're trying to do the right thing to get the right result, but you have to keep starting over and over and over again. I remember first time I went to a Tony Robbins ordeal, he starts talking about identity to shift your success. And he used the example of a smoker. Someone tells you, man, I haven't smoked in 8 days. Most of us will say, that's great, you're killing it. When the person said that to Tony, he said, why are you counting the days? Because you can't wait to go back, because you still see yourself as a smoker. Now, if you ask me if I want a cigarette, I'm not going to ask you what brand it is. Is it menthol? Is it minty? He's like, because I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker. He's like, until you get to the point where you decide that you are not a smoker, you will always go back to smoking, regardless of what 12-step program you do, what mantras and affirmations, you will always go back because you identify yourself as a smoker. And that completely blew me away. But it really ties into making decisions. So the word decision comes from the Latin word cedre. So when we get homicide, suicide, pesticide, all of that comes from the same root. The word decide means to kill off all other. So there are no other options. So when you make a decision, you are saying there is one path that I am walking. When you decide to start stripping away your identity, you are both Michelangelo and you are David. So you are carving a way to build the sculpture, the statue that is also you. So there's going to be pain involved, because it's not just learning something new. We all love to learn something new, but it's the unlearning of what's not true. It is the unlearning of an idea that you've carried around for 2 decades because you learned it from your dad and you love your dad. And now you have to learn how to separate that false information that you got from him so you can get to the next level. Or even more so, it could have been the right information. It was information for you to survive where you were at, but it wasn't the information to help you thrive, to help you rise and elevate to a new level. So that's why we have to constantly talk about self-reflection, introspection, and personal development. Personal development is not there so you can get everything that you've ever wanted. It's there to put you in a position so you finish the race, so you get the ability to get what you've always wanted, what matters most to you, so you can become congruent, and also so you can be the right person at the right time. We all want to be put in the right room where it's $1 million or $1 billion opportunity where you're in the right place at the right time. But are we taking into account being the right person at that right time?
And that is something that we have to do with intention, as far as really having our own self identity, because society conditions us to go with the masses. I mean, if you think back to, I know my lived experience going through grade school, I was terrible. My grades were not good. I was not good, and that just was not my thing. Well, I have subsequently found out that, it's my learning style that's different than how folks around me learn. And the reason that I am speaking to that is, in grade school, the kid that didn't learn the way that everybody else learned, or didn't carry themselves the same way that everybody else carried themselves, they were bullied, they were ostracized, they were separated. It was a whole thing. It's like, okay, so you don't learn how everybody else learns, we're going to take you out of the class with your peers and put you in this special class. So now your peers are bullying you because you in that class. Or, you know, when everybody else is wearing, like we come to school with J's and this, that, and the third. It was a kid that came to school with penny loafers with the penny in them, right? Man, they tore that kid up, man. Like, it was terrible. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they tore into him. And that is the conditioning. That's what society does. Like, if you're not fitting in with what everybody else is doing, you got to deal with that. So it takes a certain level of, you know, you just got to grow that fuck it in you. You know, you got to get a certain amount of that built up, and the confidence in yourself to show up as yourself and not who you think people want you to be.
That part
is absolutely critical when we're talking about the self-identity piece. And as that confidence is growing, like, this is who I am, and I don't mind showing up as that, focusing on developing yourself, like really growing your skills, because we are living in times now where, with the advent of AI and the constant advancements that are coming with AI, for those of us who don't have a skill to actually provide value to the world, like actually solve real problems, the world is going to become your problem the way that it's going. So spending the time to invest in becoming the best version of yourself. When I think about the path that I've been on for the past 12 years since I got out of the Air Force to become who I am today, it's been a lot of, you know, just intentional investment into myself and my skill sets and my ability to be able to provide value through solving problems. In doing so, I have a lot less stress when it comes to being able to provide for myself, because I know that and I don't even like saying these things, but I'm only going to mention it just for the sake of making the point. Bullseye Consulting could fold. And worst case scenario, I could go work for somebody and be pulling in a 6-figure salary without really, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have a skill set that produces that. And that came from investing in myself. That can't be taken away from me. Bullseye Consulting could grow to a multi-million-dollar company and then go back to zero. And I could go start something else somewhere else because it's in me. Bullseye Consulting is in me, right? Like, those skills are in me. It's how I'm conditioned. It's how I process challenges and opportunities, because I have invested into developing myself. So it is critically important to really, 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 especially with how the world is going now, to double and triple down on investing into self.
I couldn't agree with you more, brother. Yeah, I just want to talk about what intentional learning looks like, because I feel like enough people don't talk about that. So when I really started my entrepreneurial journey to scale up, I've been doing little things, little hustles on the side my whole life. But when I looked at other people doing the same thing that I was doing and they were running laps around me, I asked someone who was more successful than me, how do I get to their level? And they're like, well, you're doing the actions and the mechanics right, but it's who you are that's limiting you. You have a leadership lid right now, and you cannot surpass your leadership lid. I was like, well, how do I, raise it? They're like, well, read some good books about leadership, but also the indirect, you're going to have to work on your weaknesses. Okay, so I should, in theory, if I wanted to get better trust from clients, because I feel like I'm having a hard time turning a stranger into a client, I could read a book on trust. They're like, read 5. Because if you can read 5 books on one topic, you are an expert, because you know more than 97% of the population does on that topic. And that's what started my awakening. I was like, that is simple. I can do that. I'm broke as hell. I'm about to go to Barnes and Noble. I'm about to tell the people, look, I'm broke. So I can only buy coffee here once a week, but I'm going to be in here 3 times a week. but I'm going to tip you every single time. I'm trying to change my life because I'm tired of the way things looked. And I am so beyond ready to see what a vision that comes into fruition looks like. And they respected it. They said, okay, cool. Come. They were like, just don't tear up the books. Don't do anything crazy. Look, I don't have the energy to do anything crazy. I'm here on a mission. So I started hitting these books where some of the smaller books, I was knocking out a book a day, 200 page book, knocking it out, taking notes. That way I could really absorb the information. And then when you read 5 books on that one topic, bam, that pillar is done. Then you shift to the next. All right, now I want to work on my speaking and influence. Maybe the psychology of influence. Let's read 5 books there. Let's get deep on that. Bang. Now I need an operational book. I need to learn how to invest in real estate, or I need to learn how people are using life insurance to get rich, how people are using trust to get rich, how people are protecting themselves from frivolous lawsuits, how people access money for the low. And you see the point where it's like you start working around this wheel, and when you also have depth in it, then, that's what T theory of knowledge is. The width of the T is all the different topics, but the height of each pillar is how deeply you know something. And as you get deep enough on different topics, you're able to start connecting them and you get to start creating something new. There are so many things that I thought I created for the first time, where I was like, oh my gosh, I understand this and I understand this. I understand how this banking product works. I understand how this financial product works. I wonder if anyone's put them together. And I try to put it together myself for a little bit. And then I step into a meeting and meet someone who does that. And they do billions of dollars in that. And it's like, I knew I was on to something. Y'all are already cooking with it. So with that, guys, I want you to be intentional in your learning. Next time somebody recommends a book, they recommend a course, they recommend a podcast, they recommend anything to you, ask them, what am I going to gain from this? Because you have to guard your mind, body, spirit, business, family, community. You have to guard your mind. You can't just be reading anything. I'll have people tell me, oh my gosh, you should read this book. It's so good. I'm like, okay, what did you get from it? They're like, well, this book taught me to not be an introvert. If you've met me, you know I am not an introvert. I do not need to read that book at all in any way, shape, or form. But I'm glad that person got what they were looking for.
Right. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when you're investing in yourself the right way with intention, you become your greatest asset. And that's what it's about. What market value have you engineered into yourself? Because once you've invested and increased your overall market value, you have the ability to then turn that into your own means of livelihood. You can turn that into a business when you've mastered something and you truly can provide value. Where the world is going, I don't know if it's been a more important time than now for us to really have our own unique value propositions that we're able to monetize. Because, we are looking at stagflation, which is when inflation is going up and the job market is going down. And with the 92,000 jobs that we lost last month, on top of, and the 92,000 jobs that we lost last month, that's at a minimum. Because if history is prolonged, then there will be another adjustment that comes and says, oops, the 92,000 that we reported is actually 120,000 or whatever. Like, the adjustments have, for the past few months, ever since the administration has been playing with the numbers, it's been, well, nah, that isn't just unique to this administration. It was the past one as well, or previous. So they do a lot of manipulation with the numbers. But when the revisements have come back, it's been worse than the initial reporting. Again, for this administration and past. So we know at a minimum 92,000 jobs were lost last month.
And it was supposed to be a 50,000 job increase. So really, we're talking about 130,000 job swing. That part, like, let's make sure we don't skip over that. It was projected to be, 42 to 58,000 new jobs created. And this doesn't even take into account, which you spoke to many times on this podcast here, how we stop counting people after a certain amount of time when they can't get unemployment anymore, or when they stop trying to enter the job market.
Absolutely. So that labor participation rate, the labor participation rate in the United States is embarrassing, right? Like it is like no other way around it. Like it's an issue. It's a problem that needs to be addressed. But as we're looking at stagflation doing what it's doing, between those components of the inflation going up, because the thing about energy and all of this stuff that's going on with fuel and fertilizer and all of the things that are being impacted by the Strait of Hormuz not being fully open to all traffic. As the energy prices increase, there is a direct correlation to everything else, because we use energy to produce our food. We use energy for everything. So as that's going up, everything else follows suit. So we're going to watch that. I saw somebody here in Colorado Springs posted on Facebook that gas got up to $4 a gallon. And it's like, Brett, they talking about a barrel of oil being anywhere between $150 to $200 a barrel, which means that, because right now we're at like 90, like $95
97
a barrel. 97. Okay. Mind you, that $97 a barrel is influenced by massive amounts of strategic reserves being released. So the United States has an emergency stash of oil. Europe has an emergency stash of oil. And they had to go into their emergency stash and introduce those to the market because of the shortages. So that $97 a barrel is on the back of that. So as those emergency reserves get worked through, as we burn through that energy, then we run into a real issue. I can't remember the island in Iran. It's like Kager Island or something like that. But the United States just attacked that island like real crazy, like, and that island is responsible for a good portion of Iran's ability to produce oil, which is obviously their economic lifeline. So in retaliation to that, the Iranians, because the munitions that bombed that island in Iran, they originated from the United Arab Emirates. And Iran has the intelligence to know that it came from the UAE. So what did Iran do? They attacked the oil reserves in UAE, which means that, bro, this stuff is, this is insane. Like the time.
It is three-dimensional chess. It's three-dimensional chess. It's crazy.
It is. So the president said, we just bombed the hell out of this island, and we might just go back and bomb them again just for the fun of it. Like, he said that. Like, so in retaliation to that attack, again, Iran attacked UAE. So as this war is kind of growing into whatever that it grows into, the stakes just continue to increase. And as the constraint on oil around the world continues to tighten, prices will continue to increase. And we're already seeing the job numbers doing what the job numbers are doing. So the way that the economy is set up, if we just going about life like we always have, like things aren't drastically different right now, that is a fool's errand. So, I don't know if there's been a time more important than for us to really be investing in ourselves to really be able to provide value in solving problems, truly. Because, you know, that job that you done had for 10 years ain't guaranteed in this market by any stretch. Between the economic clamps that a lot of companies are feeling and the market at large is limited security in what has been secured in the past, what has been secure in the past. So being intentional. So for those of our classmates that are still punching the clock for the man, you know, it's not a bad idea to adapt an entrepreneurship mindset where, you know, we like working in the middle of, you know, I have my entrepreneur flow where, because I started professionally consulting back in 2018. And one of my partners that I met when I initially started consulting, like he can tell you when I showed up, mind you, this is my first consulting gig. But when I showed up, I already had my own business card and website and all of that as a business consultant. And I had never professionally consulted a day in my life, but I knew what I wanted to do. So when I was going through the motions, I had the entrepreneur mindset of I'm finna learn the game, bruh. Because once I know the game, like I approached it on some spook who sat by the door type shit. Where, and if for those of you who are not familiar with that story, black man infiltrated the CIA and learned all of the inner workings of how the CIA was manipulating black communities and, you know, some of the treacherous things that were going on behind the scenes. Well, he learned that game and then brought it back to the community. So when I was working for the firms that I was working for, I was really on some spook who sat by the door type shit where I was learning the game. You know, I was there as an entrepreneur to absorb. Okay, so y'all been doing this since Moby Dick was a minnow. Let me get the game. I need to know how y'all do these things, how y'all make these things happen. So even it's ironic now where, like, because as I'm continuing to build out the framework for my business, it's a lot of the things that I learned from those firms that I'm gaining more context to it, because like I knew that it was processed then, but I didn't fully understand the why behind it. Well, now I'm seeing for myself the whys behind a lot of the things that they had in place within the firms that I work for. So again, I had that entrepreneurship mindset at that time of y'all got me for now, on my terms, but I'm going to be sliding up out of here at some point. And when that happened, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to have all of the game that I need to hit the ground running. So, you know, for those of our classmates that are still on the grind, still reporting to the man, there is a huge opportunity to take that entrepreneurship mindset and plan for war in a time of peace, which is, you know, I can't even really say that because we in war. But, you know, you get the point. When you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. And these are the times to be ready.
That's right. That's why you got to begin with the end in mind. That was a great story. I hope you guys picked up all the gems, not just on what he did, but where his mindset was. Regardless of what position you're in and what you're doing, you can create a fortune from it if you are thinking the right way. Because remember, I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. Risk lies in the investor, not the investment. Because there's always a way to make $1 million. Boy, this was fire.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. and that is why, you know, we continue to show up the way that we show up for this program, because, you know, our stories are intentionally crafted And in us intentionally crafting our stories, it provides a framework for those who don't have their own to flourish and figure it out, because it's all possible. It's just a matter of the intentionality behind it. So again, as we talk about all of the things that are going on in the world, notice we're not talking about it through the lens of doom and gloom. We're not talking about it through the lens of
there's no woe is me.
That's what I was looking for. Yeah, like I'm having brain farts this morning. Yeah, it's no woe is me at all, right? It's like we see what's going on. We see the opportunities that get created as a result of what's going on, and we preparing for our Birdman hand rubs. So that's the kind of warrior ethos that we are building amongst our audience of classmates.
1,000,000%. Man, this episode was fire. You know what I mean? Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for tapping in. You know, it's been my boy Jesse.
My man Earl. It's been the Asset Class. Thank you for listening.